I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated business, central, and NAV users who struggle to use their systems and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. In this next season of the Get Your New View podcast, I'd like you to meet Kim Congleton. Kim and I are the co-owners of New View Strategies, and this season, we'll be talking with you all about change management and cheese. Hey everybody, it's Kim and Carrie. We're back talking about change management and cheese. In this episode, we're going to talk about assessing your appetite for change. How much change can your organization take? We've all seen some changes that have gone too fast, right? You can all think of a project where something just got really pushed through, slammed into place, and probably had a bad result because of that. So when you think of that type of project, Kim, what do you think about?
I think what really pops into my mind is the unrealistic timeline, right? So it's always interesting when you ask somebody when do you want to go live?
Yeah.
And I like to ask it because I like to see what type of answer I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
And I think people, a lot of times you have that go live date picked because there's some event happening, right? I'm moving a warehouse, or I'm, moving into this new building, or this software is no longer supported, or something like that. I think what people forget to do is really ask themselves, is it realistic? What is a realistic timeline? Because we see a lot when we sit down and help somebody come up with a timeline. We'll say we have this much for design, this much for setup, this much for training, this much for testing. I'm just throwing out big buckets. There's a lot more detail in that. But then when they look at it and we say, for example, it's going to be 80 hours of user acceptance testing. Mm-hmm. And they think that those 80 hours are going to happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think what people forget is that we're also expecting these people to have a day job to also now do project work. And a lot of times people can't extract themselves out of the business for 80 hours a 2 week shot. Sure. Like that 80 hours may have to happen over a month. Yep. Just because that's when they're available, or that's how we can squeeze it in. So I think, that's kind of one of the biggest things that I see that we tend to discuss a lot.
Yeah. The thing that I hate to see that we end up coming in after the fact on a lot of things like these, right, is where there's been failed user adoption. So we put this into place, but the users aren't using it. How do we fix it? So, and there's all sorts of reasons why the users didn't use it. It not working is the worst one, right? That for some reason it got implemented and it's considered done, but it's not configured, it has errors, it doesn't fit the process for whatever reason. So there's been failed user adoption. And that's almost one of the worst consequences I see when we think of projects that have gone through too quickly. Even with just putting something together and it works perfectly, right? But we haven't gotten proper buy-in with why we're making a change, why we're doing it differently. We haven't provided the right training. We haven't helped people to understand how to do it. They may have tried it in the beginning and couldn't figure it out and couldn't get the support to move through it. Or maybe we didn't force the issue, right? Where we didn't say the old system is done at this time and we need to use the new system at another time, right? So how often do we hear people saying that they're still running parallel on stuff? Yeah. That's like the death knell for those kind of projects, that allowing people to run parallel is a huge risk for user adoption. So, and especially if we're moving those things at a fast pace, I think you're absolutely right. Understanding in a project, how we can give people not just permission, but the expectation of time to spend on the project. And it can't just be, I need you to do this. It has to be, we're going to stop doing these other things, or we're going to make these other things a lower priority, so that you can do this additional thing. Has to be a big part of the buy-in process, so that people will spend time on it.
Well, and I think too, like that's a great point. I think a lot of people say, yeah, you have to make this project your priority, but then they forget to tell them what they're not going to do. And I think, it's very important to your point to set that expectation. And I like to kind of point out, it's interesting when people say, well, they don't have time to do that. I'm like, well, what happens when they're on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
If you're, who's their backup?
Right.
Like you have to kind of make a choice. Is this person gonna work on this project 20% of the time, and then the other person that would normally back them up on when they're on vacation, then they're gonna step up and back them up for that 20%?
Yeah.
Or can you do like 30-30? But I think it's very important to say you're not going to do this other stuff over here, because you are going to do that. And I think that's where a lot of people make that mistake, is they don't do that.
Yeah. And in particular with bigger projects, longer projects, right? So if this is something that's going to affect your folks for a year or more with the project, if you're going to have them invest time in testing, which you want them to do that, right? Projects where testing doesn't get done are projects that fail. If you want them to do that, making that space for them to do that is critical.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to not burn them out.
Yeah.
Because that we, when you say we go too fast, so it's always time and resources is how quickly we're going to go. You can throw people at stuff, which sometimes doesn't always work. And it's really, if you are not careful, if you have people doing their regular day job and doing the project on top of this, and you're trying to do something in 6 months, which really should be stretched out to a year to be a more realistic timeline. I mean, you can really burn your people out really quickly. And then to your point, the user adoption then we find kind of goes downhill with it.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, you have the risk of losing people in their positions overall, right?
Yeah.
That not planning this out carefully can really affect how the team is operating overall. One of the concepts that I think is really important for us to emphasize is the role of leadership in this kind of thing. So when you think of what the right message is from leadership with this kind of project, what should that sound like?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think it's key that there's full support, and it's not a mixed message. It's not a, I'm telling you it's important, but I'm not making it important. I'm telling you, you have the space and the tools and the ability to do what you need to do to make this project successful, but yet I'm going to load up a bunch of meetings on your calendar for other things or other projects. We're going to have other projects be a priority. And I think it's very important that it's the comes from the leader, says it's a priority, and the actions back up the words.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I've seen that be successful is I've seen leaders be present, right? And of course, obviously our leaders can't be in everything, right? That's not how businesses work, but being present enough so that there's involvement from the leadership level in the project that shows and illustrates support and gives a voice to that while letting the team continue to make progress, but just being present, because if leadership is completely absent, that shows that it's not a priority. And definitely not piling on other things on top of them that suddenly usurp the priorities, and especially doing things like pulling them out of meetings or pulling them out of training or pulling them out of testing time. Like if you do that as a leader, you are going to undermine your project so fast you won't even see it. So
yeah, and I think that's, you hit on a really good point. Like I always like to have a good, like a kickoff meeting with the leader involved, and the leader, it's a 10-minute, or it's even if it's 5 minutes, but it's a really, critical speech about how important the project is, why you're doing the project. I think that's a big thing, for the leader to say, this is why we're doing it. Otherwise, people are going to all day long just be wondering, well, why are we really doing this? Do we have to do it? Is it just, is it about efficiencies? Is it about us being bigger? What is it? And I think that's critical to have that leader do that kickoff. And then there's some sort of regular cadence of, even if it is just a 5-minute meeting once a month or once every 2 months, depending on how long that project is, they pop back in and they say, hey, you guys are doing great, and, keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love it when I see a project where the leader has figured out a single clear message. So,
Yes.
And one of the things that we see right now is being prepared for growth.
Yeah.
So that it's not just about efficiency. It's not just because it's the newest thing or we're going to fall out of support. But that particular message in particular, being prepared for growth, is a nice, easy one. Number one, because in the economy that we have right now, it's true, right? That's exactly what they're trying to prepare for. But you can also show progress. Even if the project is in a middle stage, you can say, hey, this part just got finished being designed, and this is going to help us grow in this way. So there's tangible illustrations that leader can provide to continue to tell the team that they are making progress toward their goal. Yeah, very good. All right. Well, I think that really one of the benefits when we think about this, right, we talked about user burnout, we talked about better user adoption, but frustration is a big one. That how often do you hear, and even just, if you're out at the grocery store or at the doctor's office, right? How many times do you hear people say, we've got a new system and it's just not working very well, right?
Yeah.
That frustrated thing where people, are just having a tough time with that. So this really addresses that frustration. So how do we make sure that that realistic time frame where everybody understands what's happening and we're all going in the same direction will really help with that frustration during the project, but especially after. Yep. All right. So your action item for this episode is think about how you have dealt with the timeline on projects in the past. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the one you're working on right now, but did you get the timeline right? If you reflect on how that happened with that timeline, was it too long? Was it too short? And how would you like that to happen differently? It's a great way to start thinking about that, because we often repeat our behavior, right? So if you've made an unrealistic timeline in the past, you're going to repeat yourself. So reflect on that a little bit and think about how you'd like that to happen differently. All right, so we have some cheese to talk about, and we're going to talk about Gouda cheese. So Gouda cheese is one of my favorite cheeses, especially when it comes to an aged Gouda. You can buy Gouda at different ages, 5-year cheese, 7-year cheese, 10-year cheese. And I really love when I can get those older cheeses because they get those lovely little crunchy crystals in there. But also we've got smoked Goudas. I don't like it when you do a whole lot of, flavory things, right? You get the bacon applewood smoked Gouda. It's a little too much, right? I like a good plain aged Gouda. What about you, Kim?
I tend to like the younger ones.
Yeah.
Because I like the like where they're not as hard,
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just the thing.
Yeah. Didn't you have the chance to go to Holland and you got Gouda from Holland?
Amsterdam. That's
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I got cheese from there, but by the time I got home, I think I got like this much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, somebody else in the house ate the majority of it. So
fantastic. All right. Well, I can't wait. I love this Gouda so much. We're going to eat some cheese. When we come back, we're going to talk about our next episode, which is how change comes with infinite choices and how do you pick and prioritize what you're going to do. We'll see you next time. I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect there just has to be a better way and you don't know what it is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.